Hi, everyone. There's always that weird moment until the recording starts where you see me like moving around and staring. So I just want to acknowledge that. Welcome to this video. I'm currently allowing myself to be a bit playful in the ways that I connect with you ever since I've decided to leave social media. So, this is an experiment just trying out how it feels to offer a video on top of my newsletter. What I like about this is that I always want to be mindful of neurodiversity and that we all connect to information differently. And for some of us, that happens more nicely or with more ease when we maybe have a video or we can have the audio in our ears. I know I love sitting down to read a newsletter and offer myself that time, but I also really love to have someone talk to me and hear them. Also, you see, I have a new mic. I'm so in love with that. I will record such beautiful meditations, hopefully, with it. It's a bit more dominant, but I wanted to try it out for this today. So, as we settle in, I would offer us to take 3 breaths to just arrive here. And you can do that in whatever way. Maybe you're walking somewhere, so no need to stop or close your eyes, but maybe you want to do that. And let's just take 3 generous breaths in and out through our nose, counting them backwards. So, when you're ready, you can maybe exhale, then take an inhale, 3, and exhale, 3. Take the other 2 in silence. And then maybe you feel that by the end, you can check in with your body if there's maybe a need. Maybe you want to loosen your shoulders, shake out your arms, loosen the jaw, soften the face. And if you had your eyes closed, you can maybe open them again. Welcome. So, what I will be offering here is a few words on my offerings for February and also a bit on the time quality of February. And if you're maybe more or less interested in certain topics, I will offer some timestamps below in the description so you can really pick out what you want to listen to if that is what you want to do. So, first of all, thank you for trying this out here with me. I'm just really excited that I can talk to you in this way and share a bit of the behind the scene for my offerings for February. So, maybe on a personal note, for me, there's a lot of change currently happening on the personal side. Daniel and I um, are intending to change our living situation. So we want to be closer to nature. So that is something exciting that we're looking towards, where we're exploring our options. And then also professionally, I've started a new training that will be with me over several years now. So it's a really, really big thing, a really big, I would say, exploration and depth, and I'm happy to say more on that maybe at a later point in time. And then also, Daniel broke his ankle, so he wasn't able to leave the house in the past 2 weeks, which brought a bit of chaos into my life, to be really transparent, because um, we have usually a really clear share in terms of who takes the dog when, who takes care of shopping, etc. Because I have a very set schedule with my client sessions, and then have that all turned around with me having to take over these activities while Daniel takes over everything at home, and then me having that new training, which also requires in-person presence on top of my client sessions, was just a bit chaotic and required some reorganization, but also some being with the overwhelm for myself because it brought about a lot of overwhelm. And for me, having had a burnout, overwhelm always brings along or often brings along a fear of of my health deteriorating. So there was a lot of also being with that. And I wrote something on this in my last newsletter. So if you're interested, you can read up there if you've received it. But um, I'm sitting here today with having taken some days where I've offered some grace to my overwhelm. I've offered some listening to it. And what I'm discovering now as I see the days of February approaching is really this word of space emerging for myself, but also for others. Um, if you are in the coaching space, it is no secret that it is a bit more difficult, or it has gotten difficult for a lot of us. Companies are decreasing spend, so there is space opening up for a lot of us. Equally, new opportunities emerging. Maybe I know for me, it's a lot of space that allows to be filled. That um, also meets me with a certain vulnerability with financial fears, which are at this point really not existential, but which are just deeply ingrained in me, right? That if certain things are not continued or so, that part of me is like, we're going to lose everything. So there's a lot of presence I allow myself with this. And maybe for others of you, I also discovered that this January has started for a lot of us with chaos and overwhelm, and maybe some noticings or developments that were a bit unexpected. And so I feel that this February really invites some space with these developments. And the reason why I'm putting this forth is because I'm noticing it in my coaching sessions, but also I always like to get inspired by nature. And during this time of the month, nature is still in a resting state. But at the same time, at the same time, we see the first little sparks of spring emerging. So it's almost as if there's this darkness still, this not having the clear picture. I don't know where I'm taken, where all of this is leading, but there are sparks of clarity. And that's what I also uncovered after I've spent the weekend really slowing down, um, supporting my nervous system to regenerate. Also, I found this big cloud of chaos in my head and a lot of overthinking. And then yesterday I had a supervision session, so I took the time to receive coaching myself. And in that supervision session, I came in and I said, I feel so lost. I have no clarity. And she looked at me and she said a sentence that I usually always offer my clients, which is that I don't think you're unclear. You sound very clear. And so we started to unpack that. And what I actually noticed was, oh, I am not unclear. It's just that some aspects of that clarity are scary, and it's easier to tell myself I'm not clear and be with that chaos and overthink everything instead of meeting, oh, I'm very clear that I don't want to do this anymore, or I'm very clear that this is what I want to do, and be with the fear that that brings about. Because maybe I don't know how to be with that, but I know how to be with overthinking and chaos and telling myself I'm not clear enough and I haven't done enough. And I felt maybe that could be supportive to some of you, because often as we dive through overwhelm or start embracing a situation, what can come up is also that we become aware of the changes that the situation will bring and the decisions that we need to make. And sometimes we try to avoid facing that by bringing about chaos and bringing about distractions within ourselves. So maybe if you're currently noticing that within you, this can be that sort of invitation to step back and see what's behind that chaos that I'm meeting. And chaos can be also maybe you falling back into habits you do not enjoy, like overeating, or maybe drinking more, or partying more, maybe also overworking, or putting too much on your shoulders, or also doubting yourself. That can also be a compulsion that we might have to distract ourselves from the decisions that are ready to be made. I want to take a conscious pause here, because maybe you want to check in as I share this, what's happening inside of you, because I noticed that I start getting a bit faster, that my voice starts changing, because there's a certain vulnerability in sharing this part of my own process, but also in talking about that overwhelm and that chaos. because we often think something is wrong with us when we experience overwhelm or chaos or overthinking. And at the same time, we meet it so often. And I feel there's almost an aspect of self-care sometimes in that chaos appearing, if that makes sense. And so maybe in this moment, you want to take that opportunity to, if you want to close your eyes, you can do that. If you're out on the street walking or driving, you can keep them open, but almost inviting that chaos or overthinking or overwhelm that you're experiencing to appear in front of you. What does it look like? Does it have a color, a shape, a structure? Mine, for instance, looks like a whirlwind in gray. And then maybe you can just see if there's something behind it. There's something underneath that. Maybe there's a word that appears or another image or color, and maybe nothing. And how does that feel to notice that? Maybe even how does it feel to acknowledge both of these being here? Maybe you even want to ask them, who are you? That one chaotic part, who are you? How are you trying to take care of me? In my case, it clearly says, I'm trying to take care of you by distracting you from these scary decisions that we need to make. Someone could be mad at us by taking these decisions. Also, we might not be able to control the outcome. Maybe you can even sense how old that part is when you talk to it. Mine feels very young, 3 years. Maybe you can sense what that feels like to acknowledge that maybe deeper view of this chaotic seeming part. Maybe you want to ask it, what do you need? In my case, there's even something physical. I feel my throat tensing up a bit. So I'm just gently placing a finger on my heart. That usually feels very nice, eases up the throat area for me too. As if I'm telling that part, hey, it's okay. We can look at those scary decisions. We don't have to take them right away. We can support us. We can take our time to feel safe when we take them. But we can just look at them for now. No need to distract. I'll take care of it. And I'll take care of you. And see if there's maybe something you want to offer yourself. And from here, let's move on to this other part that we have. Maybe also asking this part that was hidden underneath the chaos. Who are you? And then maybe also here you want to ask it, how do you take care of me? In my case, I almost see like an orange sun. When I ask it how it wants to take care of me, it says that it burns away all that I no longer need. And its name is love. And maybe also here you want to ask that part, what do you need? And maybe also this need has a physical expression. For me, this part says it needs space. And space for me feels like breathing freely. So I notice that I start breathing a bit deeper, loosening up a bit to offer myself some space. And just notice what that feels like. And from here, maybe you want to bring both of these parts into your awareness again. Maybe they have changed what they look like, how they relate to each other, their size, maybe even their names. For me, for instance, together they now form the name self love because the whirlwind, the chaos is how I used to take care of myself, how I used to love myself by overwhelming myself, distracting myself from these scary decisions that will have places and people leave my life. So I distracted myself to keep my life as it is, to sustain the relationships I had, even if they weren't working. But by allowing love and that chaos to coexist, I feel that this is self love now. That I acknowledge the chaos, which is still here. I'm not perfect. That doesn't just leave and it serves a purpose. Yet with love together, that's where some power unfolds for me. And maybe it's these words that I'm sharing that you're meant to receive, or maybe something else comes up for you. Maybe even asking, what's the wisdom you two together hold for me? And I want to offer what I received because it feels like it's also collective here. There's nothing you can do wrong. You are so loved, there's nothing you can do wrong. And maybe in holding that in your heart, if there's no wrong decision, if there's no wrong choice for me to make, what's a step I want to take? And then with that, let's take again 3 breaths to close this practice, counting backwards at your own time. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes again, maybe shaking out the body, waking the body up. Or if you had your eyes open, maybe there's a sigh or something you want to take. Thank you for trying this out here with me. To be really transparent, that's quite often how my own process goes. So I start meeting something like overwhelm or the word I need space, the words. And then I decide to go for a walk with them or take them to a meditation practice. Sometimes I read up something or I ask myself, if a client had a question about this, what would you say? Right. And then all of a sudden, at some point, a practice opens up to me, like right now, that something says, what would that look like? And then I just dive in. So that feels, you know, in the past year, I've noticed this, and I often felt that I am very chaotic in my ways for being in this way, that I'm sometimes not super linear. I start one thing and then end up somewhere else. And then through practicing, also working with creativity, I somehow found out that there's a way for me to honor this chaos, this nonlinear process, because I know that it leads me somewhere. And actually, in my coaching sessions, that's what we often observe is that clients come in with one goal, and then we take that goal as the sort of entering door, and then we dive in, and then we come out somewhere completely different. Yet that different space also offers an answer to that goal quite often. And sometimes the answer is that goal is not relevant, or sometimes we just understand it better. A classic doorway could, for instance, be this I feel stuck or I feel lost, where I often love to work with the body. And this is where I'm very intuitively guided to also share one of my offerings for February. Because as I said, I very consciously create my offerings for each month. And as I noticed, currently there is still a lot of change going on. And for some of us, our financial situation is changing. I have a bunch of founders who last year had to give up their dreams and their companies, or people who venture into something new. And I always try to also have offerings that are supportive if you currently don't have as much finances available. Um, we also offer, monthly payments, for instance, if our coaching packages are too expensive. Yet, what really came through for February for me was that I want to offer single coaching sessions, which I usually don't do. So, usually you can work with me like in a get to know each other session, and then you buy a block of 5 sessions simply because I enjoy that deep and prolonged work. Yet, for February, with everything that's happening, it felt really relevant to me to allow that possibility to work with me one on one in a single session or also in 2 sessions. That is driven by several things. One, as I said, the quality of time. Two, February is also always a calmer month for me for one on one sessions. So I do have the capacity currently to take that on. I just want to mention that because I'm always very conscious when I have long-term commitments to my clients that I ensure that my long-term clients have their sessions available and their slots available. So the times we offer new clients to join is always when I know I have more space in my calendar, which is why we also then close these at some point. So that's the second one. I have space in my calendar to offer that. And three, these sessions will be 90 minutes and therefore also a bit cheaper than my 100-minute session. So they're €250, which is still a lot. I'm aware of this. It is for most of us deductible from tax. I'm not a tax advisor, so this is not an official recommendation. And with the 90 minutes, I just want to try out if maybe this format in 90 minutes works a bit better than the 100 minutes and whether I want to shift to that duration in the long term. So there's also a playfulness side to that for me. So if you're interested in that, the slot needs to be in February. We might extend it to March, but I just want to see how things go. Also, how my booking situation is, because as said, my long-term commitments need their slots. So I just always want to prioritize that always. But if you're interested, I would love to work with you in maybe 1 or 2 sessions this February. And it works for both in person and online. The second exciting thing I wanted to share about in this video is that I've had this offering that kept calling to me, which are meditation groups for leaders. And if you have the newsletter, you can read up a bit on that. But just to share the background, meditation has really changed my life. There's no doubt about this. And I'm a really devoted and dedicated meditator. So I have at least one practice a day, if not 2 to 3 practices. And I don't do it because anyone's forcing me or because I need to prove anything to anyone. I really do it because it's transforming my life and it allows me to be in this life and show up. Meditation allows me to connect to very difficult emotions within me, around me, to find clarity and to support myself. And I have, with meditation, a very free and playful approach in the sense that I really want to choose practices that support me and my life right now. And I've noticed that sometimes this is not how meditation is taught to us. And especially as leaders, I feel sometimes our needs can change pretty quickly. And one day we are maybe in a very high stress situation. There's a lot of tension and anger. And the next day, things have quieted down, everything is resolved, we feel much connected, and we need creativity because we need solutions or some strategic planning. And so we need some new ideas. And then the next day, we maybe notice it's been quite the week and we're tired and we just want to find somewhere where we can find some rest and regenerate. And all of these different states, they can have different meditation practices that support us. They can't have the same approach. And so for these meditation groups, what I really want to offer you is to get to know different techniques that can support you during different needs and states in your life. And also to determine which state am I in and what do I need, because that's sometimes a really hard question, to just understand what do I need. And so what I want to do is really weave together all the scientific knowledge and trainings that I have in nervous system regulation, which is a really profound and really, I know some of you really like certifications, so it's really a top-notch one that I have here. Really, I've worked with the people who've created polyvagal theory and learned from them how to integrate that in one-on-one work, which is not just reading a book. And I've really worked with that intensely for myself, having a nervous system that has been in burnout and being highly sensitive, which makes me prone to stress and overwhelm much quicker than the average person. Ask my partner, Daniel. He knows that. So that's the science piece that I want to bring in, but also the science about how our breath works. And then combine that with different techniques so you can really develop your own practice if you'd like, but also just explore different things, be curious, be playful again, try out something again, and then being able to stack these practices for your everyday life. Also, I want to say that it does make you a better leader because it will increase your sensitivity towards your own needs, but also towards dynamics within your team, and how things can be shifting, or also the nervous system states within a particular room. And how do I respond to that? What do I do with a stressed team, or when I feel disconnected to a person that I usually feel very connected to? And working with ourselves in a group can help us to name these states and help us to explore how we also deal with different dynamics and different things emerging. And I would really love for this to take place over several months, simply because I wanted to support your personal transformation. And usually people find their path to me because there is a personal transformation happening in their life, knowingly or unknowingly. And so over several months is usually how certain practices really reveal their secrets to us, and we can get an intimacy with them. And that does not mean that you will have to meditate every single day. But if you'd like to, that can be. So the plan is really we're going to have live sessions together and recorded practices that you can try. And we're going to work with all that shows up: the resistance to practice, the frustration that something is not working, the questions like, I can't calm down my thoughts. What is wrong with me? Or this practice isn't working for me. Or this is working so great. How can I make it stay? Things like this. So, all the questions that come up. And if you're interested, you can get on the wait list or information list quite simply. You just send an email to hello@ninaheidinger.com or answer to the newsletter, say, I'm interested in this group. And then I might reach out to you with some questions simply because I love tailoring my offerings to the group that joins. And then you will also have the chance to pre-book before others, because there are certain things I'm still gauging, like will it be an online and in-person mixed group, or do I want an in-person group and an online group? So if you're interested, please let me know so I can even see if there are people out there who want to do this crazy thing with me or lovely thing. Yes. And with that, finally, I just want to say that this Thursday is February 1st, if you're watching this, and there is Coaching X Tarot that's happening. And this is really a format of deep self inquiry. So if the tarot throws you off, I completely understand that. It's really that we're using visuals to get deeper into our creative thinking, into our problem and solution finding mind. And so, if you maybe ask yourself some big questions currently, or you just want to offer yourself some time to dive through the chaos and uncover new layers, I would be so excited to welcome you. And how it usually works is that I offer meditation with some visualizations. And so, for instance, on October 31st, we had a visualization where we went to a special dinner taking place, like the Samhain dinner. And then we had certain guides popping up and they were asking questions. So there's a really playful and mythological and mysterious dimension to that. So we really dive into that dream world, which you maybe know from my nidras. And then I offer self-inquiry questions. And a self-inquiry question could be, for instance, what have you learned about yourself in the past month? Or what are you grateful for that has shifted within you? And then you write down your answers. And then I will pick 3 piles or 4 or 2, like some cards. And you intuitively pick a number. And then the visual that is offered to you will offer you some deeper insights, because usually when we see a picture, that's how some creativity is sparked, right? And that's how new ideas come up. And there will be a separate video at some point where I will show this, because I don't want to overburden you here. But just to give you an example, when you check in with yourself and saying, okay, so what's something I'm grateful for that shifted within me? You can take a breath, give yourself some time. And then I want to dive in, So then pick a number between 1 and 3. And for instance, if you picked 1, the card I would offer you is this one. And you could maybe look at that visual and see what it offers you. And I'll just also, if you have 2, this is your card number 2. And if you have 3, this is the card for number 3. And so depending on what you have, sometimes the cards don't speak immediately, right? But for instance, 1 is, we have these beautiful nature pictures. So maybe you've spent more time in nature, or there's something that you discovered about yourself in nature, or something that a tree reminds you of. Also, we have the Father. So maybe there's a separation from certain demands that your father has placed on you, or certain traumas that have existed on your father's side. So it's almost as if these cards are inviting us through their visuals to spark our creative imagination and uncover new aspects about ourselves, seeing something in addition. For pile number 2, for instance, with the kiss, I mean, there is something about the moon which always relates to honoring our own rhythm. Or also, you maybe see this the kiss and the intimacy that we have here with the hands. So maybe there's something that shifted in your relationships, maybe even in your relationship with yourself, how you honor yourself, how you take care of yourself, or even your readiness to open up to relationships, to receive certain relationships because you've let go of certain relationships. And then for 3, we have the self. It was a bit tricky with the video. And so maybe there is a pearl is always a sign for authenticity for me. So I have um, a certain way of working with certain archetypes that show up on the images. So maybe if you chose that card, there is something about um, your authenticity that has shifted. Maybe you allow yourself. I mean, it's here at the center of your heart to show yourself much more, to share your light, your mission with this world. Maybe there's also around these colors. They can link to the colors of the chakras. So maybe there's some practices that you've been exploring. Maybe you've been meditating. Maybe you've tried yoga or something you've been diving into, and there's this reminder of something has shifted within you with how you approach your practice, or maybe you've not been in touch with your practice, and this is just a reminder that also that is okay, and you're remembering that now. Or also maybe something else about the self, like you just showing yourself to this world and sharing yourself has shifted. And this is how you can see how we work with this in the session. So we usually explore, depending on that, 3 bigger questions, or maybe sometimes 4 to 5 smaller questions, always with me offering questions we don't ask ourselves all the time, but which allow us to self-reflect and really arrive where we are, and then using our creativity to get additional input, to learn something new about ourselves, and with that receive some guidance forward. And I always say, maybe you hear me say it's magical and that sometimes throws you off, but there really is a beauty to this, because by using visuals, we can connect to parts of ourselves which are sometimes not connected to language yet or to that clarity. And we can get subconscious knowledge to our rational minds. And studies really show that our rational minds are the last to know, right? It's our body that knows first, or sometimes even our emotional world, where things are clear way before our rational mind grasps onto them. And so by working in this kind of way, by having that grounding meditation, some visualization, having self reflection with questions we don't usually ask ourselves, and then having some images on top, we can really get to certain aspects that are clear within us, which we might not access in the everyday busyness. And so there's usually some really beautiful stories and journeys that emerge. And I can always say the cards really point to things where we're like, oh, I really didn't want to look there, or I wouldn't have thought this would have come up. It's really miraculous, I want to say. So you can see I really love it because it's just such a playful and different way to answer life's questions sometimes. And it's proven to be really powerful because it just gets us out of our rational over analytical thinking, which sometimes, doesn't cut it. So, with that, I want to wrap up by saying in February, I'll also be offering breath work. I intend to do a video where I explain a bit more about breath work and how it can be supportive to you as a leader. I just want to say, watch out for this. And then with that, I want to say thank you so much for listening to this, watching this. It almost feels like a little video podcast that I did here for you. If you enjoyed this, please give me a thumbs up here and also subscribe to the channel. Maybe also share it with a friend who needs this. Subscribing to the YouTube channel makes sense because I'm also always, publishing meditations. And with this new baby, I'm intending to publish a lot more meditations or also other videos. So it's really worthwhile to stay on here and receive the notifications. And then if you haven't, please also sign up to my newsletter where I also share my events and some reflections, because writing is really a way of my creative expression and is really very, very nurturing for me. With that, thank you so much. If you have any thoughts, feel free to share them, express them at hello@ninaheidinger.com. And I hope to see you in one of my one-on-one sessions, trainings, and or workshops this month. And with that, have a beautiful rest of your day and bye bye.